Welcome aspiring web designers and front-end enthusiasts to the sweet world of front-end styling and responsive design. I'm NJ and I'm thrilled to be your guide on this delightful journey through the art of crafting beautiful bakery websites using CSS. Whether you are an absolute beginner or someone looking to level up their skills, this channel is your one-stop shop for all things front-end. We are going to dive deep into the magical world of CSS, where we will sprinkle some creativity and learn to design stunning websites for bakeries. I'll take you by the hand and break down the fundamentals of CSS, making it as beginner-friendly as a piece of freshly baked bread. From selecting the perfect color palette to creating mouth-watering typography and adding those finishing touches, you will master it all. But wait, there's more. We won't stop at just making pretty websites. We are also going to make sure they look fantastic on all devices, be it a desktop, tablet, or even a smartphone. Responsive design is a piece of cake and we will savor every bite of it. Get ready for hands-on projects, step-by-step tutorials, and tons of practical tips. You will not only learn the how, but also the why behind every CSS style we apply. By the end of this journey, you will have the skills to create websites that are as scrumptious as the pastries in your favorite bakery. So if you are ready to unleash your creativity, make beautiful websites, and master the art of front-end styling, hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and let's embark on this delectable adventure together. I can't wait to see your front-end masterpieces. Stay tuned and let's start designing the web one delicious website at a time. Let's get started. Okay, now to expedite this project, I have already created 3 files, that is index.html, script.js, and style.css. This style file as well as the script file both are empty. However, the index.html has some basic skeleton code already defined. And I have already linked up the style file as well as the script file. I have changed the title to Bread House as well. Besides that, this is an empty slate. We are going to define everything together. Now before we start that, I forgot to mention that I have already brought in this folder which is called images, and this contains all the images that we are going to utilize in this project. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing that we are going to start working on is this navigation bar. Now if you notice, this navigation bar consists of 3 parts. First one is logo, then we have the actual menu, and then over here to the right we have this search bar, the cart icon, and there is one more icon over here which appears when our viewport shrinks to either tablet or mobile size. Okay, so this is the overall structure that we have to work on. Oh, one more thing. Actually, there are more elements such that when I click on this icon, search icon, this search bar appears. And when we click on this cart item appears. So for the time being, we are not going to concern ourselves with these ones. Let's first define this part that we see right now. Okay, so in the body, let's get a header tag. Now we are going to define the entire navigation section within this header section. Now we are going to divide this header section into 3 parts. The first one is going to contain a logo. So we are going to define an anchor tag with the class logo. Let's keep this href empty for the time being. And as far as the contents of this anchor tag is considered, let's bring in the image which is going to act as a logo. So image. Now for the source, let's define, we have images folder, images. Then we have this logo.png. So we are bringing in this logo. Let's remove this. Okay. Let's start our server. Now this project is running on port 5501. So this is the project that we are working on, and this is our demo project. So now we have already brought in our image, our logo. Next we have to define our actual menu. For that we are going to use nav element. Let's give it a class name Navbar. And over here we are going to define anchor tags. I think we will be needing 7 anchor tags. So okay, this is 1. Let's keep href empty, and as far as the caption, let's give it name home. For the second one, cakes, we are keeping hrefs empty for the time being. Cheesecakes, new arrivals, about, review, and the last one is going to be contact. Now next we have to define a div which is going to contain all the icons. So we have 3 icons in our navigation bar. The first one is for the search icon. So another div for search icon. Let's keep it empty. One more div for cart icon. This is empty as well. The last one is menu icon. All of them are empty. They are supposed to display those icons that we see in our demo project. So we are using font icon to display those images. Therefore, first of all, let's go to the font awesome, bring in the kit link which we have insert over here, and then we will bring in all the icons that we are interested in. So font awesome. Now I'm using this version 5.15.4 because we can only create one free kit, and when I created this free kit, this version was available, so I'm stuck with this version. However, probably that won't be the case with you, so you can move on to the latest version as well, but I'm stuck with this version and I have to choose free icons. Okay, so first of all we have to bring in the kit link. So for that I have to sign in. Okay, so now I have logged in. Let's bring in the kit. So this is the kit that I have created. I am going to copy this link and paste it over here in the head section. Okay, now we are ready to use font awesome icons. Now let's go to the icons. Let's search for search icon. Let's change the version number to 5 something. Okay, we can't use pros because we are using free kit, so let's select this one. And you have different ways to include this kit, include this icon in your project. Since we are using HTML, so we are going to use this one. So when I click on it, this snippet is going to get copied. So copied. Now let's go to the project, and over here in the first div, which represents the search icon, let's paste it. Let's check. We can already see this icon over here. Okay. Then the next one is cart. Let's select this one. Click to copy and insert it in this second div, which is cart icon, with the class name cart icon. Paste. For the third one, we are interested in menu bar. Let's select this one and paste it over here. Okay, I did I not copy it, or it seems I haven't copied it. So click, paste. Okay, good. Now let's close this font awesome for the time being. Now we have got all the contents that we require in our navigation bar. So let's move on to styling this section. Let's go to style.css. Okay, the first thing that we are going to define over here are generic properties that are going to be applied to all the HTML elements that exist in our HTML file. So to define generic properties that apply to all the elements, we have to create this asterisk block. Now whatever properties you define over here, they are going to be applied to all the elements in our index.html page. So basically we want to remove this margin and padding. And the reason for removing this margin and padding is that many HTML elements have default margin and paddings assigned to them, and we don't know what those margins and paddings are. So in order to be consistent, we want to remove first of all the margins and padding, so that later on we can define our own margins and paddings for only those HTML elements to which we want to actually give margin and paddings. The rest are going to have zero margins and paddings. Then we want to set the box sizing to border box. By setting box sizing to border box, we are basically ensuring whatever padding we assign to any element, that padding is going to be taken out from the total width or height that we have given to that element. For example, let's suppose we have a div to which we have given a width and height of 300 pixels by 300 pixels. That is, we have turned into a square. Now, if we haven't set this box sizing to border box property, and then we define the padding to be 20 pixels, what that will do is that it will increase the total width and height of that div from 300 by 300 to 320 by 320. By setting this box sizing, we are letting CSS know to don't add up on that width and height. Rather, take space from that width and height that we have defined and reserve that for padding, so that the end result is the total space occupied by that div is still 300 pixels. So this is what box sizing does. By setting box sizing to border box does. Okay, now next we want to remove if any of the elements have any kind of border attached to them or outlines attached to them. So we want to remove those borders and outlines, so that if we need, only then we will define our own borders. So border is none. Likewise, outline is also none. So outline is most of the time invisible. Only when the element gets focused, then this outline gets visible. For example, in our form we have input fields. When we click on any input field to type in something, only then that outline gets visible. So we are ensuring this outline is also none, so that later on, if we feel the need, we can define this outline. Then set the text decoration to none as well. This way, if we have defined any anchor elements, which we actually have, like over here, now you can see the underline has been removed. So by setting text decoration to none, this underline has been removed. Now we don't have to worry about removing that underline from rest of the anchor text which we will define in this project. Now next, if you notice, these two menu icons, home and cakes, have been capitalized, the rest are not capitalized. So this is inconsistent because we forgot to capitalize them. So what we are going to do is that we are going to set this text transform property to capitalize. Now we don't have to worry about capitalizing any text over here. So okay, these properties are enough for the time being. Later on, as we progress along in the project, we might have to revisit and add some more properties to this block. But for the time being, that's more than enough. Oh, one more thing. Let's define the font family. So I'm going to go with this Verdana, Geneva, Tahoma, and Sans Serif. So basically, we are listing 4 font families. First of all, your browser will look for this Verdana font on your device going where you are opening this project. So if that device has this font installed, the text will be displayed in this font family. If this is not available, the browser will search for this text on your device. If it's available, it will go for this one. Otherwise, it will move on to this one. And this last one, this is universal. It's available to all the projects. In fact, almost all of them are available to all the systems. But in any case, if none of them are available, then we can fall back to this sans serif one. So let's select this one as the font family. Okay, that's it. Now we are almost ready to work on our navigation bar. I said almost because we are going to define all the colors that we are going to use in this project in our variables. This way we don't have to worry about remembering the actual hexadecimal code or RGB values, and every time we have to use one of the colors that we have already used, we have to go back and look for that hex value and then put it back. So if we have variable names assigned to them, then we can simply call those variable names. So that means let's go even higher up and define this root section. So this root section means the root of your document, which is the whole HTML. So whatever variables you define over here, they are going to be present throughout the whole HTML page. Okay, so let's choose main color. Now to define variables in CSS, we have to start them with these double hyphens, otherwise they won't work. So main color is, so this is our main color. So this is the main color that you will be seeing in the rest of the page, and this is the color for the navigation, which is a slight variation of this color. So let's define this nav color. Okay, now let's define the background color. Now let's one more color, which is a shade of black, so I'm giving it the name black. Okay, so this is a bluish black shade basically. Okay, now let's move on to defining some styles for the HTML itself. So over here we are going to set the font size to 62.5%. Well, this is almost a convention, and what it does is that basically on most of the systems the font size is 16 pixels. So by setting it to 62.5%, we are rounding it off to 10 pixels. Now this 10 pixels is easier to visualize and apply mathematical operations on them, such as making it twice, that means 20 pixels, making it thrice, that means 30 pixels, making it half means 5 pixels. So it's easier to visualize what we are thinking in terms of pixels. So this is why you will almost see it in all the projects that initially the font size is set to 62.5 pixels. And later on, keeping this 10 pixel size, you can double it, half is whatever your needs are for the rest of the elements. Then we want the overflow in the x direction to be hidden. We have to define 2 more properties over here, but I will define it when it makes more sense. But for the time being, let's move on to the body section, and basically we have to give it background color. Since we have defined variables, so we are going to use those variables, and to use variables in the CSS, we have to call this function var, and to this we have these variables to use from. So we are going to go with VG color. Now we have to start defining styles for the heading section. So for that, let's go and look what class name we have given to that header section. We haven't defined any class name, so let's give it a class name, header as well. Now we are going to use this header class name to define stylings for this header section. We could have used the header element itself as well, but let's stick with the convention that we are going to follow, that is, we will be using class names to define styles. So now I have opened the browser as well as the code editor side by side. so that we can instantly see the effect of styles that we are defining. First of all, let's give it background color, and again we are going to utilize the variables that we have defined. So since this is navigation bar, so we are going to give it nav color. This is not affected. Okay, I hadn't saved this file. Now as you can see, this much space is being occupied by the header and all the elements are on different rows, so we have to bring them in single row. So for that we are going to set display property to flex, and you can see, so this is our logo, then menu items, and over here in the corner you can see that we have these elements over here. Okay, then justify content center and align item center as well. So this menu icon and these icons have all been aligned centrally because this image occupies too much space, so we can't see that the effect has taken place on this image as well, but it definitely has on this image as well. Now let's put some space between the edges of the browser and our elements. So for that we are going to give it padding. Padding is 1.5 frame and 7%. Or what you can do is that you can switch these places, 7% and 1.5 frame. So basically we are using two different units to define the paddings. For the top and bottom this is 7%, and for left and right this is 1.5 frame. Let's shift back to the original one. Now for the top and bottom this is 1.5 frame, and for the left and right this is 7%. Now what is this RAM? So if you remember, we defined the font size to 62.5% in the HTML. So this RAM means root element. So in our case this root element is this HTML itself. So over here we are saying whatever is the font size of root element, I want 1/2 of that size to be assigned as padding to this element. So if you remember, we said 62.5% means 10 pixels. So 1 frame is equal to 10 pixels. Now by setting 1.5 frame we are saying 15 pixels. So 15 pixels to top and bottom, and for the left we are giving it 7%. Now this top and bottom paddings are dependent on the font size, whereas this 7% is basically dependent on the actual space occupied by the browser or the device. So depending on the size of the browser, we want 7% of that browser width to be given as a padding to this element as left and right padding. So this way we are more flexible. We are not only adjusting the padding with respect to changing device width, but we are also changing it with respect to the font sizes as well. So this helps in making this web page more responsive. We will be defining explicit properties to make this web page responsive, but defining padding in this way and setting this font size to be 62.5% is already helping us a lot into making this page responsive. Now we have to make sure that when we have lots of elements, such as over here, when we have lots of elements and we are scrolling down, this navigation bar is still fixed over here. It's not scrolling up and it gets invisible. It always remains in the visual area of the browser. So we have to make sure that this happens to this navigation bar as well. And to do that, we are going to set its display property to position to fixed. Then once you change the position property to anything, you have to define its dimensions. For example, for the top, that is from where it should start appearing, we are going to set it 0, and left is 0. Setting right to 0 will basically, by setting right to 0, we are saying that it should start at very left end of the browser and it should end at the very right end of the browser. So basically we are giving it 100% width. And this top is saying start at the very top corner of the viewport or our device. So wherever the device starting corners are, this should be placed over there. So this is what position fixed is doing. Okay, so now we have positioned this navigation bar or the header section with respect to the viewport rather than the normal flow of the HTML elements. Now the next thing that we have to do is that whenever we scroll down, this element stays there. It doesn't get scroll up and get invisible. So for that we are going to give it Z index to it, and we have to give it some high value. So no element in our HTML page should have this high value. We have to make sure that this one is the highest value. It doesn't matter what value you give to this element, as long as this is the highest value that you assign to any of the rest of the HTML elements. So by setting this Z index to the highest value ensures that this one stays on the top. So what I am going to do is that I am commenting this out for the time being, because at the moment you can't see its importance. Only when we have defined other elements and we have lots of elements and we are scrolling up and down, then you would be able to understand the importance of defining the Z index to be 1000. So for the time being, I am keeping it as a comment. When we actually realize its importance, we will come back and uncomment this property. Now we should move on to defining some styles for this logo. So let's go to index. And this logo is actually an image which is inside anchor tag element with the class name logo, which in turn is inside this header element. So we are going to define this relationship. So within this header section, we have a class name or an element with a class name logo, and that element has a child which is an image element. So we are interested in decreasing its height. So when we decrease its height, the width will automatically get adjusted. So for the height, let's give it 60 pixels, and 60 pixels means 6 rem. Okay, so this is the size. Now next we have to turn into a circle. So for that we are going to set border radius to be 50%. Now as you can see, there is no space between these elements, the logo and these icons. So put some space between them evenly. We have to redefine one property in the header section. Justify content, we are saying put everything in the center. So now we are going to say put space between all the elements. So there are in total 3 elements. So now some space has been put between them. So as the size increases, the space will also increase. So now as you can see, by setting display property to flex, we have already made it responsive. Now we have to define some properties for these elements. So header, and within this header we have this nav element with the class name Navbar, and there we have these anchor elements. So header dot navbar, and then this anchor, we are setting its color to be white. Let's increase font size to 1.6 rem, and we want some space between these elements as well. So margin, we don't have to give any top and bottom margin because those margins are already being given, because its parent element, that is the header, has been set the display property flex and align item center as well. So we don't want any more margin as far as the top and bottom is concerned. However, for the left and right, we want to put some space between each of these menu items. So let's make it 1 rem, that means 10 pixels. Now in order to see the effect, it didn't have any effect because I put 2 dots over here. Header, navbar, so many mistakes. Okay. Now you can see the size has been increased and there is some space between them as well. Now we have to define what shall happen when we hover over these elements. So when we hover over them, let's see what happens. Okay, maybe this is too much font size. Font size, let's make it 1.3 rem. I've made it. Okay. Now as far as hover effect is concerned, this is the hover effect. So when we hover over it, we want the color to change. Then we want this top and bottom borders to appear, and we want to see them appearing as an animation. So let's work on that. Copy, paste, and since we are defining hover over for the anchor, so colon hover. This hover is a pseudo class, and over here we are defining properties. First of all, we want the color to change, and we want it to get this color black, and we want border top and bottom to appear. So border top, let's give it 3 pixels, so 0.3 rem solid. And as far as the color is concerned, let's go with this black color as well, and we want the same one for the bottom as well. Now we want some space between these borders and the element itself, so we have to define heading top 0.5 rem, that means 5 pixels, and let's copy paste and change it to heading bottom. Okay, now let's see its effect. Refresh. So even though everything is happening, but we don't see this transitioning effect, the animation, smooth animation. That's because we haven't defined a very important property which is called transition. So when we want any of the properties to change its value and we want it to happen slowly and gradually like an animation style, then we have to set another property called transition. And over here we have to define what kind of transitioning we are applying. So basically we are changing values for these 6 elements. We are changing the color, we are changing border top from none to this, we are changing border bottom from none to this, and we are changing padding top and padding bottom. Since there are 6 properties, so rather than mentioning all of the properties over here, I'm going to put all over here. So this is going to cover all the values or all the properties which change value. That means which are undergoing transitioning. Then next property is how long I want it to take for each transition to take effect. So I want it to take 0.5 seconds, that is half a second. And next, what kind of style we want to transition in. So let's give an ease in. Okay, so now let's hover over them and you can see this transitioning effect. Now since we will be defining this transition property to many other HTML elements as well, so I'm going to cut this property from here and I'm going to place it into generic block, so that for rest of the elements I don't have to define this transition property again and again. Okay, next what shall we do? We have to style these icons, and the first thing that we have to do is that we have to bring them in a single row as well. Within this header element, there we have a div with the class name icon, and there we have respective divs with the class name search icon, cart icon, and menu icon. So first of all, bring them all in a single row. So header, there we have one of its child with the class name icons, and for there we have to set its display property to flex. Now you can see the elements have been brought in into a single row. Now we can set the justify content to space between to bring the gap between them, or we can define margins and paddings individually for them. So let's take that approach. Let's target individual divs within the icons. Let's change the color to white, cursor to pointer, font size, let's make them 2.5 or 2.2 range, that is 22 pixels, and margin left 2 rem. So this margin left 2 rem will place some space after each element. Okay, so this is how they look. Now font size is not increased because of this dot. Okay, that's better. Maybe that's way too big. Let's make it 2 rem. I think we should make them 1.8. Yeah, that's better. Now we have to make this disappear, because this will only appear when the screen size is smaller. That is when we are either viewing this page on the tablet or on mobile. Okay, so header icons, and the class name given to that one was menu icon. Dot menu icon, set its display to none. Good. Now we have to define the hover effect for these elements. So since we have to define hover effect for all of them, copy, paste it over here, attach hover C2 element. We are simply changing the color to this black. Okay, good. Next we have to define this search box. When we click on this search icon, this search box appears. So for that, let's go to our index.html and define its structure first. So after this div, which contains all the icons, let's define this another div with the class name search form, and there let's define an input field with a type search, name let's give it search, id search box. Now let's define a label for search box. So we have to make sure that the value that provide over here matches exactly the ID of this input field. This way, even if we click on this label, the focus will automatically go to this input box. Now to this search box, let's give it another property or attribute placeholder search here. Okay, now as for now, let's go to the label again. Let's give it a class, and the class that we want to give is this one. This will bring in the search icon from the font awesome. Okay, there it is. Now we have to define the rest of the styling in our CSS. The first thing that we have to do is that we have to bring the search box over here, like this one. This is slightly below this navigation bar. So to do that, since this search icon is inside the header, so header, and the class name that we have given is search form. This is the top div in which we have defined this input field and label. So we are going to give it position absolute. Now since this search form has a parent, which is this header, that parent has a position defined fixed. So now setting this position absolute will look at this header section. Now the search form will try to position itself with respect to this header section, because header is the parent, because header is the first element that has its position set to fixed, that is any value other than the default value. Default value of each element is position static. If header didn't have set position fixed, then this absolute would have looked at the browser itself as its parent. So now since this header has the position set to fixed, so the search form will look at this header as its parent and will try to position itself with respect to that parent. So considering that as a parent, now we have to define where should this search form be placed. So we want this search form to be placed slightly lower than where this header section ends. So for this search form, the ending part of header is 100%. So if you say top to 100%, so this means start exactly where header section ends. Now since we want to put some space between header and this search box, so we are going to set it to 115. No effect. I'm sure I've made mistake in giving it the class name. Correct spelling. This is search form. Oh, this is search from. Make it form. Okay, now you can see it's over here. Since we have only set the top, so it is placing itself over here. And since this is the padding area, so that's why this search box has not moved over here. Just to give you a clue, let's make it back into 100%. Now you can see it has moved exactly where the header section ends. So let's turn it back to 15. Now for the left and right, so let's set the right property to 7%. That is, from the right side, move 7% to the left. So now it has moved from the right side. It has kept 7%. Now we have to give it fixed width as well. So width, let's give it 50 rem. Okay, so this is how it looks. So you must be thinking we wanted it to be 7% from the right and width should be 50%, but it seems to have only moved into the center. So just to confirm that the whole width has increased, let's give it some border. I'm giving it border solid 1 pixel black, and now you can see it has occupied the 50% of the width. But since all the elements are justified to the left by default, so we thought that the search box has moved to this place. But let's keep this border for the time being. Now let's define some height, 5 rem. Okay, let's decrease its width from 50 to 30, 35, and height make it 4 rem. Yeah, that's better. Now let's move to the input field which is inside this search form. So copy, paste, and there we have an input field. We have to make sure this input field occupies whole width of its parent as well as the height. Therefore width 100%, so whatever width it inherits from the parent, likewise the height 100%. So now this is occupying the whole width and height. Just to be extra conscious, let's give it background color of white. Okay, now we have to give it some padding so that there is space between the edges and this placeholder, and we have to increase the font size as well. But first let's change the spelling. It's supposed to be H over here, not G. Placeholder is search here. Okay, so padding, let's give it 1 rem all around. Since at the top we have defined the text transform to capitalize, over here we want to negate that property. So explicitly define text transform to none. Otherwise, whatever text we type, it will automatically turn into capitalized letters. Let's give it font size. Let's make it 1.2 rems or 3 rems is enough. And then change the font color to the black that we have defined. Okay, now whatever you type is in the color that we have defined. Okay, now we have to work on this icon such that it goes over here. So to bring it over here, first of all we have to make sure this comes in the same line in which we have this input field. So that means for its parent we have to set the display property to flex. So let's go to the parent, which is this. This is the parent. So display flex. Let's set align items to center as well. Now let's go to the, let's copy, paste it over here and define some properties for the label. But first let's check if it has already moved in a same row. Yes. Okay, so we have to give this one background color white as well. So background color white. The color itself is going to be black. Now instead of defining this background color for the children, let's remove it and cut it and put it with the parent. Let's move this text transform property to its parent as well, so that it applies to both of its children. Okay, background color is white. Okay, good. Now we have to bring this icon slightly towards the left so that there is space between the edge and this icon. And we have to increase the font size as well. Let's also make it 1.3 rem. Heading to the right, let's make it 1.3 rem as well. Okay, that's better. Now let's remove this border and probably decrease the height as well. So height, let's make it 3.5 rem and let's remove this border. Okay, that's better, but it doesn't seem to have affected the text transform. None doesn't seem to have taken effect. Why? Let's move it back to its children. Okay, so text transform was not taking effect for its children if we define it with the parent. For this label, let's define the cursor to be pointer, and now when we hover over that icon, so we have to define the hover property for this label. We want the color to change to this main color. Okay, good. Now basically we want the search icon to be invisible. Only when we click on this icon, then we want the search icon to appear, and then again if we click on this search icon or some other icon, then this search icon should disappear. So to define this logic, first of all, let's set its right property for the parent, which was this search form, and from the 7% to minus 100%. Now you saw the search icon disappeared. So basically it's still there, but it's not in the visible space. Since we have set the overflow X to be hidden, so it's somewhere outside our browser space. It's there, but it's not visible. So when we click on this search icon, we want that search icon to be brought back to that original position. So for that, we are going to define a class, another class for this search form. So copy and paste it over here, and the class name is active. So when this active class is attached with this header search form, then the right will change its value from minus 100% back to 7%. So now we have to define a click event for this search icon such that when we click on it, this search box appears over here. So that means we have to go to our script file. Now first of all, we need to get access to the search icon. So this is the div. We have to get a reference to it. So const search icon document query selector. We are interested in a class name search icon. Now we have to define an event listener for this. So search icon dot add event listener. Let's define it through an arrow function. So the event we are interested in is click. Now before we define the logic over here for this arrow function, we need to access the search form itself. So copy paste and search form. So now within the body we are saying search form dot class list dot add class name called active. Refresh. Now let's click on it. Nothing happened. F12. Failed to execute event listener on 2 arguments required but only 1 present. Okay. So the event is click. It's a separate argument, and to the body let's put empty brackets because we are not passing any parameter to this arrow function. Okay. Click. Now it appeared. Okay. Now since we haven't yet defined any logic how to make it disappear, so it won't disappear, we have to refresh it. Click and it appears, but now it doesn't disappear until we define how to make it disappear. It's going to stay there and we have to keep refreshing the page. Okay, so that was the search part so far. We will define the further logic that will make it disappear as well. But for that, we need to have other elements and other logic defined as well. So for the time being, we have to live with it. Okay, now let's move on to when we click on this icon, this list of cart items should appear. So let's work on that. So let's go to our index.html. So that first we have some structure defined there. Now after this div where this search form ends, let's define another div with the class name cart items container, and within this div we have to define multiple divs, each of which will represent one element in the cart. So let's define the structure for first element and then we will copy paste it. So each div will have a class name cart item, and within this cart item we have a spawn element. This will have a class, and this class will represent a font or some element which will be basically cross sign. So the class for that cross sign is FAS FA dash times. There it has already appeared. Okay. Then we have an image. Let's bring in some image. Let's bring in brownies. Okay. Now then we have another div with a class name content, and within the content we have h1, which represents the name of the item that we have put in the cart. So I have put in brownie, so excuse the spelling, I'm not sure if this spelling is correct. Then we have to have another div with a class name price, and let's give it 50 let's make it 49.99. okay, so this is the heading. Let's make it h3. Okay, that's better. So cross, image, and these are the contents. Now we have to copy paste this structure. So this is cart item, this is where it starts and this is where it ends. Copy, space, paste. 4 items are enough. Third item, second item, first item. Since these contents are inside the header and I have made header position fixed, so that's why it's not moving, even though now the header is way too big. But because of being position fixed, we can't even see the scroll bar over here. It's not supposed to move. Okay, now let's go to the style part, and to fix this, now before we define any styling over here, let's go to the demo project and see how our cart items appear. So it starts exactly where our header section ends. So header cart items container, we have to set it position absolute, and since this one has the parent header as well, so with respect to the header, let's set the top to be 100%. You can see this has moved down. Okay, let's width of 35 frame. Background color is white. For the height, let's temporarily give it 80% of the viewport height. Let's give it right as well. Let's give it 0 so that it goes to the right edge. Okay, since we are still not able to see the rest of the contents because it's still inside this header section and it's fixed in size, so that means we have to shrink the image size so that we can see how much height it's occupying at the moment. Okay, so let's directly move on to header cart items container, and there we have cart item, which is an image as its child. So first of all, let's give it height. Let's give it 6 frame as well. Yeah, that's better. Now let's give it some border to see where it ends, because currently I'm not able to see solid 1 pixel black. Okay, so okay, good. So it's occupying the remaining height. Okay, good. Now we have to define the rest of the properties. However, this width seems to be too much. But first, let's define the rest of the properties, and then we will see how much width should be given. So now we are targeting individual cart items. So individual cart item, now we have to set its display to flex so that all its content should come in a single row. Okay, that's better. Again, the width is too much, I think. So let's make it 28 frames. Okay, that's better. Now bring them all in the center. So align item center, and let's give margin top and bottom 2 rem, left and right 0. That's better. But for the parent, let's define some padding. Let's make it 0.8 rem. Okay, now let's target this cross. So basically we want to move it over here. So to make it easier to understand, let's temporarily give this each cart item a border so that we are able to see where does each cart item starts and where it ends. Solid 1 pixel, let's give it black. Okay, so now basically we want to bring it over here in this top right corner of this box. So that means we have to position this X with respect to this box. So in order to position this with respect to this box, we have to make sure that this box is the first parent that this X encounters. To make this box the first or immediate parent of this X with respect to which it will position itself, we have to set the property from static, which is the default property, therefore not defined. We have to set it to something else. Since we actually don't want to do any changes to the cart item itself, so the surfaced value to define its position is relative. So relative means with respect to where it should actually be, and we are saying it's relative to its actual position, but since we haven't defined top, left, right or bottom properties, so it will be placed on its original position. But now having this cart item, the property position set to relative, now for the span that we have defined over here, where is it, this one, which contains this cross sign, we can target it. So let's copy this part, paste it, and within this cart item we have an span. So now we are setting this position to absolute. Now setting this position absolute, it will start looking for an immediate parent against which it will try to position itself. And now since we have set the position property of cart item relative, each cross will find this whole cart item, the parent container, to be its immediate parent. So now it will try to position itself with respect to this box. So now we have to say top, let's make it 0 for the time being, and right, let's give it 2%. That means from the right side it should be moved 2% to the left. Okay, so now it has been placed over here, so let's bring it slightly down. So the top as well 2%, and the right, let's make it 4%, 5%. Okay, let's change the font size to 2 rem. Color is black, cursor is pointer. Okay, that's better. Now let's define hover property for this. So copy, paste, hover. Now we want only the color to change to main color. Good. Or shall we make it red? Yeah, I think red is more appropriate. Okay, let's increase the size a little bit. So where is image height? Let's make it 7 rem. Okay, that's better. Now we have to target these two items, the title and the price, but we need some gap as well between each of these elements. So let's go to the cart item, the parent, this one where we are defining display flex. Over here let's define gap to be 1 rem. Okay, that's better. Now let's target this h3 and the span with the class name price. So let's copy this part up to cart item. Then within this cart item we have a class name content, and then let's target h3. Font size is 1.6 rem. Color is black. Heading bottom 0.5 rem. Okay, now let's target this price. So let's copy this part, paste, and now change it to price class. Font size, let's make it 1.2 rem. Delete padding, and for the color we need main color. Okay, that's better. Maybe instead of defining the height, let's define the width so that it looks more like our demo project. Let's change it to width 7 rem. Okay, that's better. Maybe we should decrease the width of the container as well. So container, we have given it width, I think 35. Okay, so this is the container. The width is okay, let's make it 25. Okay, that's better. And maybe this text is also too big. So let's go to H3. Let's make it 1.5. Yeah, that's better. Now let me go and change the contents of these cart items. Okay, we should decrease the size of H3, it's too big. So where is H3? 1.2 rem. Then we have to decrease the price to 1 rem as well. Yeah, that's better. And we should also increase some width, because otherwise there is no space between this cross and the title. So let's change the width back to 28. Yeah, that's better. Okay, now we have to do the same that we did for this search icon, such that when we click on this cart icon, this drop down list appears, otherwise it's invisible. So first step is to make this container invisible by setting its right to -100%. Then let's copy, paste, and define another class for it, active, and over here set the right property to 0. Now let's go to the script.js, and basically we have to copy everything, paste. Let's go up and look for the class name. This is cart icon. So cart icon, and the class name that we gave to the cart menu is cart items container. So this one is going to be cart items container space, and over here container. Okay, now Control C, replace this with this one, cart icon, add event listener, click, and copy, paste. What happened? Okay, since I removed the person sign, so it turned into pixels properly, probably. Save it. Okay, good. Now let's click. Okay. Now since we have two event listeners associated with them, so now we have to define the logic such that when we click on this one, if this cart menu is visible, it should disappear and only search icon appears. And when we click on this cart icon, only this menu appears, and if this search icon is visible, it should disappear. So for that, let's go back to script, and over here we are copy this part from the search icon, paste it over here to this cart icon, and over here remove this active class. And likewise copy this cart icon container and paste it in this event listener associated with search icon, and over here we are saying remove it. Okay, let's refresh. Now let's click on this search icon. Now this search box is visible. Now click on cart icon. So now the search icon disappeared and the cart icon appeared. Now let's click on search icon again. The cart items disappear and search icon appeared. So this part is also working. Now if you notice, this cart has a button which is supposed to take us to the checkout page, but our cart at the moment is missing this button. So we will revisit this part once we have defined this button. So in the meantime, we are moving on to defining this hero section. So let's go to our HTML and define this structure first. Let's go down. Now outside this header block, let's create a section with the class name home as well as an ID home. Now within this section, let's create a div with the class name hero, and this contains a h3 element as its first child, and the contents of this h3 is indulge in heavenly sweet delights. Then let's create a paragraph with some lorem ipsum text. So lorem, let's make it 15 words. Maybe 15 is too much. Okay. Now let's create an anchor tag. Now this anchor tag has a class with the name button. Let's keep href empty and the text is get yours now. Now before we define any CSS, let's go to the browser, and you see nothing appears to be present over here, the new text that we inserted. So let's inspect. In the body we have this header section and then we have this section. So apparently this hero section is present, but it seems to be invisible. So it's basically behind this navigation bar, and because it's behind this navigation bar, we can't see it. So why is this behind this navigation bar? The reason that it's behind this navigation bar is, first of all, let's go to our index.html page, and now see this section is actually a sibling of our header, this header. So our body basically contains two children. The first one is header, and next we have this section with the class name home. So basically header and section are siblings. So this normally means that section should come after our header section. But remember, we gave this header section position fixed. So when we assign position fixed to this header section, now we took it out from the normal flow of the elements in the body. And now for this body, this home section is the first child, because this header has been given a completely separate, you can say, a stage. So it has been given a different stage, and on that stage this header is the first child. But the normal stage where this body elements reside, on that stage this home is the first element. And since body as well starts from the top left corner of the browser, right where the browser starts, home being the very first element in the body, so it is also aiming for that position. Now that has created problems because we have already reserved that space for the header section. But since that space has been reserved through a different stage or through a different flow, so now this home section is not aware of that. So now we have a problem. So we have to come up with a solution. Now there can be many solutions, but the solution that we are going to go for in this video is that we are going to figure out how much height is being occupied by this header section, and we will give that much value as the top margin for this home section. So this way, even though this section starts at the very top left corner, but because of the margins, it will appear to be present right where our header section ends. Now, since we haven't given any fixed height to our header section, so let's assume that this header section occupies 20% of the height of our browser or viewport. So assuming 20% to be the height of this header section, we are going to give 20% as the margin top for this home section. Let's go down, home section. Let's give it margin top 20% of viewport height. In fact, let's give it 25% just to be sure that we are able to see the contents. Okay, so now you can see. So probably 25% is the right height. Okay, so this seems to be working. Now to unravel more problems, let's give it a background color. So background color, let's give it aqua. So now we can see the problem, which is there is too much margin space over here. We don't want this margin space. We want enough margin space such that this home section seems to be starting right where our navigation menu ends. So this means instead of guessing the height of our navigation bar and based on that giving same margin top to the home section, we should know exactly how much height is being occupied by the navigation bar so that we can assign exactly that much space as a margin top to our home section. So that means we have to go to our header section and now we have to give it fixed height. So Control F, let's start with the header. Okay, now let's give it some height. Let's give it 20% of viewport height. Okay, that's fine. Now let's go back to our home section and now we can be certain that exactly 20% of the viewport height is occupied by the header section. Therefore, we have to give exactly that same amount as the margin top to the home section. Now this looks much better. Okay, now before we define further styling, while I was editing the part 1 of this video tutorial, I noticed that I have pressed dot before the HTML element, the styles that I defined for the HTML element. So now our CSS was looking for a class name HTML, and since there is no class name HTML, therefore these two styles were never applied. And this is the reason, if you have watched my previous video, I had to play a lot with the width and heights and font sizes that I assigned to different elements. So now we have to fix this problem. So that means some of the elements might get very small or very large based on what font sizes and width and heights I have assigned to them. Okay, so now you can see this is the 62.5% of the normal text. That is, when we take 62.5% of 16 pixels, this is the text we get. Now with regard to that, this is a very small size, so we have to go and fix these. So the best way to fix all of them is to start looking for font size. So this is the font size of HTML. Now let's go down. We have font size of this Navbar anchors is 1.3. That means now it's 13 pixels. So make it 18 pixels. Yeah, that's better. Make them slightly bigger as well, and we have to increase the size of this logo as well. Okay, let's look for the next font size. So these are the icons, and from 1.8 to make them 2.5 rem. Okay, that's better. Now let's go for next font size. Now this is our search form. So let's click on it first. Okay. For the search form, let's increase its width from 35 to make it 45, and the height is 4.5 rem. Yeah, that's better. Now let's go down and increase the font size 1.3 to 1.8. That's better. We have to increase this size as well. So let's go down to the label from 1.8, 1.3 to let's make it 2 rem. Okay. Then let's click on this. Now we have to increase the size as well, but keep looking for the font size first. Okay, so this is our cross. This span is in the cart items and it represents the cross. So we are keeping the same font size for this one. So let's move on to the next one. Now this is H3. This H3 is, let's go to the cart item itself, container, and let's increase its width from 28 rem to 35. Okay. Now let's go down. Image width 7 rem, it's fine. The span we are keeping the cross. This is the span that represents the cross, so let's keep it same. 2 rem is fine. However, for the H3, let's make it 1.5 rem. Okay, that's better. Now this one. Price, it's 1 rem. Let's make it 1.3 rem. Maybe a little bit bigger. Yeah, that's better. Now we need some space between these two elements as well. So padding, let's give it, this is the H3 padding. Let's give it 1.8 frames. Now we should give some margin all around to each of these cart items as well. So we have to go to the cart item, just cart item, this one. Okay, so margin top and bottom we have given it 2 rem. Let's make it 2.5 rem. Okay, that's better. Now let's go back to styling this hero section or the home section. So refresh. Now we need to bring in this image as the background for the home section. So again, let's go back to the home section and let's define the background image. We are going to utilize this URL function and we are accessing an image with the name background 3. So this is how it looks. It seems that it only has changed color, but we can't see any image. Can you guess why? This is because the image is trying to fit into the area that is being currently occupied by the home section. And since we know this home section only contains one div and div occupies as much space as its contents, so first of all we have to make sure this home section occupies the rest of the browser space. So that means let's give it height of, not height, minimum height, because our home section must occupy at least as much space as the rest of the empty space in the browser. So that's why we have to go for the minimum height. And since we have assigned 20% to the navigation bar, that means the rest of the browser space occupies 80% of the viewport height. Okay, so this is how it looks. So this is the total space occupied by the home section. But as you can see, our image doesn't seem to be fitting into this area. So now we have to fix this aspect. So we have to define some more properties for this background image. First one is background, this repeat, and we want it not to repeat. That means if the image is smaller than the area, don't put multiple copies of the same image to cover this whole area. And second one is background, not color, background size, and we want it to cover the whole area, but don't repeat it. So basically by saying cover the whole area of the space, that is the total space of this home section, so image should cover whole area, but in order to cover whole area, instead of repeating it multiple times, if the image is smaller, scale it appropriately such that it covers whole area without repeating the image. This won't have much effect. We are still seeing the same image, that is, it seems to be a portion of image has been cut out. So to fix this, now we can say background position. Now we can tell from that whole image, start placing this image in this home section, but start from the right side of the image. So this will have the effect that we are interested in. Now you can see it has started from the right side, and as a result we can see the whole image. Okay. Now we have to work on this aspect, this text. We have to define styles for these ones. So the first thing is that we want to obviously make it bigger in size, and the other thing is that we want them to be placed exactly in the center over here. So for that we are going to set display property to flex and align items to center. Not justify content, just align items to center. Now they have been brought in the center. Now we have to increase its size. So let's target this H1 first. But before that, let's go to index.html. Now if you notice, within this home section we have this hero div. So let's define some width for this one such that it doesn't cover the whole area and it should occupy just some area over here, so that it gives the illusion of text being present on the left side and image being present on the right side. So home, then we have hero section, div. Let's give it width. Let's give it 60% or 60 rem, that is 60 pixels. Now this way, this content section will occupy just 60 pixels from the left side. They won't be pushed towards the left side. Now let's move on to home, hero, and H1. First of all, change the font size to 60 rem. Text transform uppercase. Color, let's give it white. Sorry, it's H3, not H1. That's good. Now let's move on to this lorem ipsum text. Maybe we should put some more text. So lorem 5. So home, hero, and paragraph. Font size 2 rem. Font weight is lighter. So this font weight gives the illusion of bold or not. So with this font weight we can make it bolder or not. So we want it to be slightly lighter than the normal font weight. Line height is 1.8 rem. Heading 1 rem top bottom, left and right 0. Color is a shade of white. Okay, that's better. Now we have to move on to this anchor tag, which will act as a button. And since we will be using these buttons at multiple places throughout our project, so let's define after this body section the properties for these button class. First of all, let's give it background color, and we are utilizing this main color. The color is white, the text color blue. Okay, increase the font size 1.7 rem. Heading top and bottom 0.8 rem. Left and right 2.5 rem. Margin top 1 rem. Cursor is pointed. Okay, so this is how it looks. Now let's apply the transitioning property on this one, such that when we hover over it, it shows some animation effect. So button hover. We just want letter spacing to increase to 0.2 rem. That's it. But margin top doesn't seem to have taken effect. And also there is no space between these two lines of text, even though we have defined line height for this text as well. Okay, so the reason for not having any space between these two lines of text is that the font size itself is bigger and the line height that we have assigned to it is smaller. We have given it font size 2 rem and the line height is probably 1.8 rem, I think. Yeah, line height is 1.8 and the font size is 2 rem. So that's why we can't see any effect. So let's make it 2.8 rem. Now you can see some space. So let's increase this space to 3.2 rem. Okay, that's better. Now we have to figure out why this margin top is not taking effect. So can you guess why this margin top is not taking effect on this anchor tag? Well, that's because the anchor element is by default an inline element. And inline elements doesn't take into account top and bottom margins, even if you define them. So in order to give this anchor tag some margin, first of all, we have to change its display property. So set its display property to inline block. And the reason for changing it to inline block and not block is that we don't want to actually turn into a block element. We only want to give it an illusion of a block element. So inline block will do the trick. Now you can see there is some space between this paragraph and this anchor element. Okay. Now you must be wondering that there is no space between these elements and the browser edges. Well, that's because we haven't defined any margins and paddings that affect these corners. We are eventually going to define them, but let's ignore this fact for the time being. However, I just noticed that I haven't changed the size of this logo. So let's go back to this image and change its size. Dot logo, and this is image. Let's change it height from 8 rem to 10 rem. Okay, that's better. We need to decrease this total navigation height as well. So currently the navigation height is, let's look for header. Okay, so it's 20. Let's make it 16. Okay, now we have to push this home section up. Basically, we have to decrease the margin top from 20 to 16 as well. So we have to look for home section. Okay, now the margin top becomes 16 and we have to increase the minimum height from 80 to 84 because we have decreased the total height occupied by the header section, the navigation section. Okay, that's better. That is closer to this one, our demo project. Now since we have got this button now, we need to add the same button over here and remove these outlines as well. So let's go back to the card container and let's keep the border for the time being. However, for the card items, let's remove this border and now let's go to the index.html and in the header section, this is where is the card. So this is home section. Okay, this is the header section. Let's go to the very end. Okay, so this is where the fourth card item ends. Now let's put an anchor tag with the class name button, and for the text, order now. Okay, good. Now we have to give it 100% width. So let's go to the style section and copy this, paste it over here, and for the anchor tag, let's give it width 100%. It hasn't taken effect. I wonder why. Oh, okay. So this anchor tag is directly inside the cart item container, not within the cart item. So over here we are saying within the header section there is cart items container element, and that one is a child named cart item, and that cart item has an anchor tag. When in fact this anchor tag is directly the last child of this cart items container. Okay, good. We have to make it text align center as well for this button, so that the text is exactly in the center. So let's go to the button class over here and text align center. Good, that's better. Okay, so now we are done with the home section. Now let's move on to the cake section. Okay, so let's go to the index.html, and this is section home. Let's shrink it. This one as well. Now, so let's define a section with the class name cakes as well as the ID name cakes. Now this section contains two children. One is h3 element with the class name title, and it contains the caption R. Then within there we have a spawn with the text cakes are cakes, but cakes is inside the spawn element. Now then we have to create a wrapper class, so let's give it a class name wrapper. Now within this wrapper class, we have to define the structure for each of these elements. So let's create a class name cake cards. Cake card. Then first of all let's create an image for the image. So images cakes, let's put in cake 1. Now h3, let's make it cake 1 for the time being. We will then change it when we know what picture it is. Let's create a div with the class name price. Let's make it $22.99. And then anchor tag with the class name button. The caption is add to cart. Okay, so this is the structure. Now let's go to the browser. Now there they are. Okay, so this is chocolate cake, and then we have to add many more. So let's change the title from cake to chocolate cake. Okay, so this is item 1. Now let me copy paste this multiple times. Copy, paste, item 3, paste, item 4, paste, item 5, paste, item 6, paste. Okay, cake 1, cake 2, cake 3, 4, 5, where's cake 6? Okay, let's keep the price the same for the time being. And now let's go and define its styling. Cake section. Now first of all we have to define styles for this h3, and since this h3 is going to be in all of these sections, like this are cakes, are cheesecakes, and new arrivals. So basically more than one section has this title. So we are going to define the styles for this title in the generic block. So let's go to styles and go at the very top, and after the button, let's define the styles for the title. First of all, we have to bring it to the center. So text align center, color is white, text transform uppercase, heading bottom 3.5 rem, font size 4 rem. Okay, so this is how it looks. Now we have to give it this shadow. So in order to define this shadow in horizontal direction is 2 pixels and vertical direction also 2 pixels. Blur is 0 and the color is, I'm going to use black color. Let's have a look. Okay, so this is how this currently looks, but it's okay, the color, it's not black color, we have to use the main color. Okay, but if you notice, okay, so this color is different. This color seems to be matching this color, the box color. Okay, we haven't defined this color, so let's go and define this color, but in the meantime already put this variable box color. I think card color is more appropriate. Let's make it card color. Okay, so this is the box color, card color. Let's go back. Okay, now the shadow that we have given to it is only in the this positive value means horizontal shadow but towards the right, and second positive value means vertical shadow but towards the bottom. Now we have to give this shadow in all the directions, that is left, right, top, bottom, even diagonally. So these two values cover the right side and the bottom side. We have to basically copy this, put comma and paste it back. Now this one is towards the right side. If you put minus over here, this one gives shadow in the left direction as well. And if you put minus over here as well, this one gives the shadow in the top direction as well. So now these two values cover shadow in the top, left, bottom and right direction. Now we have to cover the diagonal sides as well. So paste, put minus for this one means in the left direction it's negative, but in the y direction it's positive, so it's diagonal in one side. Now one more time, paste, and over here we put minus for the horizontal shadow. Now over here put minus for the vertical shadow. Now it covers all the sides of a text area, the text. So this gives us the illusion of this text shadow. Okay, now we have to turn this into the main color. So for that, let's target title spawn. Color is okay, that's great. Now we can move on to define stylings for these card elements. So the class name that we have given it wrapper and this card cake card. So first of all, let's define, we are going to set it display is grid. Now to make it responsive, we are going to set grid template columns, repeat, autofit, min max 30 rem and 1 FR. Okay. Now what does this tell us? So instead of mentioning over here, let's say repeat 3 and 30 rem, basically we are saying in each row you can have at most 3 cards and the width of each card is going to be 30 rem. Now this is not responsive, which means if the device size is very small, then it might not be possible to squeeze in 3 elements in a single row. So rather than putting in 3, we are saying autofit. That means fit as many elements as possible, and then over here we are going to make this value dynamic as well with min max. Now over here we are saying 30 rem, the same one that we had previous, and the second value is 1 FR. So now we are saying that the width of each card element is going to be minimum 30 rems. However, if there is more space, then that space should be equally divided and assigned to these elements. So the width can increase if we have more space. However, a card can have at most 30 rems of width. It can't go lower than that. But since we have set over here autofit, that means we are not forcing the number of items on each row. By setting this autofit value, we are saying fit as many elements in a single row as possible. However, the width of each element or each item cannot be less than 30 rems. So now this makes it responsive. over here. So currently there are 4 elements in a single row. Now as the size decreases, we have 2 elements. So this is the beauty of defining grid template columns with this property. Now the other thing to consider is that can you see the space between these 2 items and this space between these 2 items. So this space seems to be equal between different elements on a single row and different elements on 2 different rows. So we have to define this gap by a gap property of 1.5 frame. Okay, so this is how currently our grid items look because our image sizes are way too big. Now we have to work on them. So let's define that. Let's prepend it with the section name, which is cakes. In fact, we don't need to prepend this one because later on you will come to know that we are going to use the same wrapper class for the rest of the sections as well. So it's important we don't prepend it with section names. Otherwise, this property will only apply to grid items in the cake section. That's why I removed it. Okay. For the individual items in the cake section, so cake, we have a wrapper class and there we have cake card class. Let's give it a background color since we have already defined card color. Then we have to give it padding all around, top bottom 3 rem, left and right 2 rem. Text align center. Okay, it will still not have any effect because the image size is still quite big in our case. Yes, but you can see the background color and some padding. Now let's fix this image first. Copy, paste. So for the image, let's give it width 100%. That means 100% of its parent, whatever it inherits. Okay, that's already much better. Now let's target this H3. So let's copy paste it and change this image to H3. Color is white. Font size 2 rem. Heading top and bottom 1 rem, left right 0. Okay, now let's target this price. Again, copy paste it and price. Color, let's keep the color same. Font size, let's decrease it to 1.5 frame and 1.5 frame. And for the padding, top bottom 0.5 frame, left right 0. Okay. Now if you notice, some of these have this original price and this is new price. So we have to place this original price to some of these elements. So for that, let's go to index.html and this is item 1. Let's put it with item 2. So for the item 2 in the price div, let's put in span and this is 22. Let's first of all make it 10.99 and original price was 15.99. Then the second one is wedding cake. Let's change it from 599.99 to, let's put a span and make it $300 over here as well. Okay. Now we have to, like these ones, cross them out. So let's define those. Copy paste it, and within the price we have a span element, and color, let's keep it same, font size, everything same. Let's change this to text decoration, line 3. Now this color and font size we already have in the parent as well. If we like, we can remove them as well, but I'm keeping them for a very specific reason. It will be made clear to you later on, but for the time being, can you notice this has been crossed out, but I'm not happy with the font size overall. Okay, instead of 1.5, let's make it 2 then. That's too much. Make it 1.6 rem. Actually make this one 1.8 rem and this one 1.5 rem. So the price is bigger and the span price is smaller. Yeah, that's better. Okay, now let's define some animations. So when we hover over them, the color of the box change and the box increase its size but in the downward direction, and the font text also change but not for the span, the original price. Okay, so these are the transitions that we have to apply. So the first transition is on the cake card itself. So basically we have to ensure that box increases in height but only in the downward direction. So that means let's go to this card and copy, paste and define cover property. Now since we are increasing size in the horizontal direction, so transform and scale in vertical axis, so scale Y, let's make it 1.1. But the problem with this will be that this will scale in both directions, upward and downward. See, it's scaling in both directions and we only want it to scale in one direction, that is downward. So for that we have to go to the original cake card block, and over here we have to define the transform origin. So transform origin property, and over here we have to define or fix the transformation center. So transform top center. What this transform center will do is that it will make this top center of this every card the transformation point. So this will kind of fix it over here. The center will not change. So from this center, now you have to scale keeping the center same. So now the transformation is happening in the downward direction. Okay. Now the next thing that we want is, when this transformation happens, we want the background color to change as well. And the background color that we want is this black. Yes. Okay. Now we have to change the color, but only for this text, not for this original price. Since we want to change the color for everything, so that means let's copy this part. Okay. Let's delete it. Now when we are hovering over this cake card, then what should happen to the rest of its children? That means all the children in the cake, we want the color to change to main color. So all the children within this cake card, they should change its font color to main color. Let's see what happens. Okay, so two things have happened. H3 has changed its color, but this price doesn't seem to have taken any effect, and this button seems to be without any title. That's because the text color has changed to the same color, that is the background color of button, so that's why it seems to be invisible over here. H3 has taken effect, but this price doesn't seem to have taken effect. So now we have to sort this problem. First of all, let's sort this problem. So basically we want this color to change for everything other than this anchor tag. We want the color to change for this price as well, but not for this anchor tag. So we have to fix this problem. So over here we have to say everything except for anchor tag. So if there is an anchor tag, don't apply this transition. So all the children, but not the anchor tag. Now you can see. Okay, the price is taking effect. The price is also taking effect, but not this original price. But why wasn't the price taking effect earlier? Probably we hadn't saved it. Okay, but now we have to figure out why this span is not taking any effect. So first let me show you when will it take effect. So basically if we replace this class name price for the div with the div itself, and now you will see the transition is applied to this span as well. What does this tell us? This tells us basically this is called a selector specificity. So basically it's like priorities that we have in mathematical operations, like multiplication and division has higher priority than addition and subtraction. So there is a similar concept over here. The HTML elements have lower priority compared to the class names, and class names have lower priority compared to IDs. Since we haven't used IDs, we have only used the element tag names and the classes. So over here, because we have defined a separate rule which is more specific to a span which is inside some element with the class name price. So this is more specific compared to this a span which is inside a div. So this becomes less specific than the one that we had earlier. Sorry. Okay. So basically when we are defining this transition is applied to all the elements including this span which is inside this price div. But because we have a separate rule which is more specific, so that's why these properties take over and the transition effect does not take precedence over this specific property. So this is why the this price value has not transitioned to this main color. So this is it for the cake section. Maybe we should give it some margin top as well. So Control F title, and we have given it padding top. So make it padding top bottom 3.5 frames and left right 0. Yeah, I think that's much better. Okay, now the next thing that we have to work on is putting some space between these edges. Now since this is a section and the second one is also a section, so rather than individually giving them paddings or margins, we are going to define a generic block for every section. So at the top, after HTML body, let's, before this button, because button is class name, so section is a HTML tag. So before this button, let's give it a padding, let's give the section, basically every section, some paddings. So in order to make it responsive, we are going to use two different units. So top and bottom 2 rem, left and right 7%. Okay, that's much better. But why hasn't this heading taken effect on the second section, which is the cake section? Let's inspect it. This is home section. Cakes. Oh, okay. So rather than creating a section, I have created a div with the class name section and cakes. Let's go to, this is class name cakes, and first of all let's look at its closing div. First change that div, because otherwise we might change by accident a different div. So this is ending section. Now let's go up. Okay, now let's change this div to section. Good. Okay, now you can see the gap, 7% gap and 7% gap over here as well. Okay, now let's move on to defining this cheesecake section. So let's go to our index.html to first define this structure. Okay, over here let's create a section with the class name Cheesecakes as well as ID Cheesecakes. Okay, now let's first create a title for this section. So h1 with the class name title. Spun Cheesecakes. Now we have already created styles for this title class, so we don't have to do any work for this h1. Now let's move on to the contents of this section. So let's create a div with the class name wrapper, and we have already defined styling for this wrapper class as well. So this part is already done as well. Now let's move on to defining the structure of individual cards. So let's give them cheese card class. This cheese card is going to consist of 3 divs as its children. The first one is named icons, and this is going to contain these 3 icons. So let's first create 3 anchor tags. Now let's bring in the class name from the Font Awesome website. So let's remove this because we won't be including any href value for these anchors. And the card. Okay, this card has an arrow down, so let's look for a different card. Let's choose this one. Now we only need this FA shopping cart. So class name is FAS and FA- shopping cart. Okay, this is first anchor tag. For the second one as well, let's replace this with the keyword class. Now the second one is a heart. So let's look for heart symbol. This one, FAS FA-heart. I'm not copying this because I'm not including this whole I tag. I'm only using this class name for these anchor tags. So FAS FA, sorry, not hyphen, for this one, FA-heart. Okay, this is second one. Now for the third one, this is an I. So let's look for the I symbol. Okay, this one. Okay. FAS, FA-I. Let's go down. I is missing. Oh, I see. I haven't changed this hash ref with the class keyword. Okay, good. Now we have to bring in this picture. And we are also bringing in this picture through a div child. So let's create a div with a class name image, img, and within this, let's actually create an image tag. Let's bring in some image from the images folder. We have this cheesecake folder, and there, let's use the second image. Okay. Next, let's create another div for the rest of the content. And within this content div, the first element is h3. This is a mango cheesecake. Let's create another div with the class name stars, and over there we need to bring in stars from the font awesome. This one, copy, paste. We need 4 more, and the last one is this half-filled star. Copy, paste. Now, next child of this content div is price div. A div with the class name price. So let's put in some price, 15.99. Let's bring in a span with the original price, 20.99. Okay, so this is how it looks. So these are our icons, then image, title, stars, and the price. Now we have to replicate this card to bring in more cheesecakes. So copy. Okay, so this is how it looks. Now let's fix them. Now since for the wrapper class these styles are already defined, so let's start with cheese card. Sorry, the section name is Cheesecakes. Okay, then we have a wrapper class, and then we have cheese card. Let's say text align center to bring everything in the center. Let's give background color, and since this color is going to be used only at this place, so let's not create any variable for this one. Okay, then heading all around is 2rem. Let's have a look. Okay, so this is how it looks, and if you notice, this one has a border. So let's give it a border, and since this border is going to be used at multiple places, for example over here you can see the border as well, this outline, and many other places we will be using this border, so let's create a variable for this border as well. In order to keep this border consistent, we are going to define all three properties of the border over here. So first property is 0.1rem, style is solid, and for the color we are going to use this card color. Okay, so these are 3 properties we have defined. Now let's go down, and over here for this border, let's give it this border variable. Now even though the border is very subtle, but I'm pretty sure you can still see that. Okay, now let's define hover properties for this. So copy paste and attach this hover C2 class. Now we want to give it some box shadow. The only thing that happens over here when we are hovering over it is it gets some box shadow. Now over here we are setting the first 2 values to be 0 because we don't want any offset value. However, we are going to give it 10 pixel as a bullet property. So what this will do is that instead of showing the shadow towards the left and bottom corners, it will give the illusion of a shadow being behind this card. So it will create a certain depth, like the card is slightly raised. The shadow is going to be a shade of black, so we are going to use RGB A values with 0, 0, 0. However, for the opacity, we are going to use 0.5. So this is a slightly transparent kind of color. So let's hover over it and you can see the shadow all around. Okay. Now we have to first of all work on these icons, but let's fix this image size. Once the image size is in its place, then we can easily see the rest of the contents and then we can easily define the styling for them. So we know this image is one of the children of this cheese card. So copy, paste, and its child is image, a day with the class name img, and let's give it padding all around, 2.5 frame top bottom and 0 left right. Now copy paste this section, and within this image div we have actual image tag. Let's define height to be 20 rem. Okay, that's better. Now let's start working on these icons. So copy this part and place it above it, because this one actually, this child is the first child of this cheese card, so it's only fair to place it before this image tag or this image child. Okay, so this is a div with the class name icons. Now as we know that the children of these icons are all anchor tags, so we are going to directly style those anchor tags. Now we have to make this anchor tag into a square box. So in order to make it a square box, let's first of all we need a border all around it. So same border variable we are using. Then we have to give it some height and width, and this height and width should be equal so that the shape turns out to be square. Make it 5 frame and width as well 5 frame. The color of the text is going to be white. Font size is going to be 2 rem. Let's see how it looks. Okay, so this is how it looks. Now even though horizontally these items look centrally aligned, but vertically they are not centrally aligned. So in order to bring them in the center, we are going to give, since these icons are actually text, so if we assign same line height as the height of this box, that will bring this text, which is a symbol in our case, exactly into the center of that line height. So line height is exactly what is the height of this box, which is 5 frame. Okay, good. Now we have to place some space between these elements. Since anchor tags are inline elements, so that means the top and bottom margins will not have any effect even if we define them. So let's define margin to be 0.3 rem. Now when we give one value to this margin, it means apply to all the sides. But anchor being an inline element, the margins will only be applied to the left and right. Okay, good. Now let's define the hover property for these anchor tags. So copy, come down, paste, hover, background color is main color. Now since we are going to use this same box shadow over here as well, so let's copy these values and create a variable. Paste over here, and now let's go back. Let's replace these values with box shadow, and now let's go to the hover property for the anchor. Okay, box shadow is box shadow variable. Okay, it's working. This is also working. Okay, good. Now let's move on to the content section. Okay, now since this content section comes after the image div, so let's define these styles after this image div. Copy this part, paste, and the div name is content. The first element is h3, so let's define styling for h3. Color is white. Font size 2.5 frame. Let's give it some padding, or shall we give it margins? Margin, let's give it 0.5 frame, top and bottom, and left and right 0. Maybe we should give it some more margin. So let's make it 1 rem. Okay, now let's move on to these stars. copy, paste, and the div name is stars, and within the star divs we have I tags. So let's increase font size to 1.7 rem, and color, let's give it main color. Okay, now let's give it some paddings as well. So we are going to define this padding for the parent rather than the individual children, that is the individual I element. So padding, how about 1.8 rem? Okay, that's better. Now let's move on to the price one. So for the price, copy this part, paste, price, color is white, font size, let's make it 1.8 rem. Okay, now copy, paste, and now let's create styles for the span element within the price. Let's decrease its size from 1.8 to 1.4, and text decoration line true. Okay, that's better. Okay, so this is the end of our cheesecake section. Now let's move on to new arrivals. So first of all, let's define the structure in our HTML file. Okay, so this is our aim. We have to create this structure for the new arrivals. Section, class name, new arrivals, ID, new arrivals. Now over here, first of all, we need a h1 with the class name title, new, span, arrivals. Now we need a wrapper div, a div with the class name wrapper, and within this we have to create cards. Now I'm going to simply give each card the class name card, because new arrival card is going to be way too big, so let's just simply call it card. Now this card div contains two children, both of them are divs. So first one is an image div. This one actually contains an image which is going to come from images folder, and let's choose this macarons one. Okay, let's remove this. Now for the second div, which is content, let's create an anchor tag. Let's remove this href. The title is rainbow macarons. Then we have a paragraph with the lorem ipsum text. Let's put it 5 over here, or maybe let's make it 8. Then anchor tag with the class name button. The text is going to be explore. Okay, so new arrivals, and this is our first new arrival. Let me copy paste it 2 more times. Copy. Okay, now let's go and define the styles. Let's target the individual cards. So new arrivals, then wrapper class, and there we have a card div. Let's give it background color 1D. Okay, now for the border, use the variable that we have created, border, this one. Okay, copy, paste, and now let's target the image div. Let's give it 100% width, no margins, no paddings, nothing. Okay, now copy paste, and let's target the image element within this image div. It's supposed to be 100%. Okay, delete. Height is 100%. Object width contained. Width also 100%. Okay, that's good. Now let's move on to this content section. copy, paste, and content. Let's give it padding all around 2 rem. Copy paste. Now let's target this first anchor tag. Now since there are 2 anchor tags and we are interested in at the moment in this first anchor tag, and since we haven't given it any class name, so we are going to utilize anchor tag colon, then we are going to use nth of type. So now this nth of type will look for any element whose type is anchor within this content set, within this content div, and over here we have to provide the number of the anchor tag that we actually want to target. Since there are 2 anchor tags and we are interested in first one, so we have to provide one. So first element of type anchor, so we are targeting that one. And the property that we want to define are font size 2.5 rem, line height, let's make it 3 rem, color is black. Okay, so there it is. Now since this anchor is an inline element, so we can't define top and bottom margins. So instead what we are going to do is that we are increasing the line height, and it has the same effect. Okay, now let's work on the lorem ipsum text. Copy, paste, and we have a paragraph there. So first of all, let's define the color and let's give it gray color. This one, okay. The next is increase the font size to 1.5 rem. Okay, let's give it some line height as well. Since font size is 1.5, so line height let's make it 2.5. Okay, that's better. Now we have to make this button initially invisible, and once we hover over it, this should get visible. So now let's copy this part, because now we are going to access anchor element but the second one. So rather than doing that, what we can do is that since we know that this one has a class name button, so copy, paste, and target the button. Display is none by default. Copy paste it, and now when we hover over the, not the content but the card, when we hover over anywhere in the card, so therefore we have to set this hover class for this card, delete, and okay, actually we are not going to set the display property to none, because if we set display property to none, there won't be reserved any space for this button in our card. And later on, while defining this hover behavior, if we set its display property back to inline block, it will actually increase the overall size of the card as well, because now the card has to adjust in the button, the anchor button. But since we want to keep the size of the card fixed, so we have to look for other ways of making it appear and disappear. And one way to make it appear and disappear without giving up the space that it is supposed to occupy is we are going to apply a transformation and we are going to scale it to 0. That means shrink it such that it disappears. And now over here for the hover class, let's apply the same transformation and scale it to 100% of its size. Sorry, not 100%, 1. So 1 basically means 100% in this case in terms of scaling. Okay. Are we missing anything? Okay. So when we are hovering over it, not only this anchor tag is appearing, but the color of this text is also changing from gray to the same color, the black color. So that means we have to define a transition for this paragraph as well. So copy, paste, and again we have to apply this hover behavior on the card itself and change the color to black. Okay. Good. Okay, that's it. We are done with the new arrivals as well. Now let's move on to the about section. So let's have a look at the about section. Okay, so this is a very simple section with it has an image and some text and no hovering effect at all. So this is going to be very quick. Let's create a section with the class name about as well as an ID about. First of all, we need a h1 with the class name title. Let's start with the span because we are going to color the about one. So about and this, then us, about us. Now let's create a class container. I'm not placing card over here because it doesn't have any cards. It's just one container. It has a div with the class name image, which contains the image. So images, and the image that we are going to use comes from Cheesecake, and it's Cheesecake 1. Okay. Delete this. Okay. The second child is a div with the class name content. This one contains 2 paragraphs with the lorem ipsum text. Let's make it 20. Second paragraph with the lorem ipsum text. Let's make it 12. Okay. Then an anchor tag with the class name button. The text is learn more. That's it. Let's have a look in the browser. And this is how it looks. First this image and then this text. We have to bring this text in the right corner. Okay, let's go to the styles. About us section. So we have a section with the class name about. There we have a div with the class name container. We have to set display property to flex. Justify content center. Background color is black. Let's have a look. Okay, I think again I've made a mistake. Instead of defining the section, I have defined a div with the class name section. That's why there is no padding over here. So index.html, let's go up. Yes. Cut this and replace this div with section. Let's go to the bottom and let's replace this div with the section as well. Okay, that's better. Now let's work on this. Probably we need some more text. So let's add one more paragraph to this. Paragraph lorem 20. Okay, now let's style them. Now if we decrease the size, and now let's go to the about section. Now if you notice, now the structure has changed. Now the image is at the top and the text is at the bottom. So we have to make sure that the same behavior is shown by our project as well. So to do that, what we are going to do is that we are going to say flex rep to rep. So what this flex rep will do is that if it can't fit both of its children on the same row, it will bring the children on the next line. But now you must be thinking that this behavior was supposed to be shown when we were on smaller screens. So what went wrong? So basically we are displaying the image in its original size, and this original size occupies more space. Therefore, there isn't enough space for this second child. And because of setting flex property, flex rep to rep, this has been wrapped and brought to the new row. So we have to basically decrease the size of this image initially, so that initially we see both of these elements or children in a single row. So to do that, we are going to define property for the image element. So this image element is inside this container, and we are going to set its flex property. First value is 1, second value is also 1, third value is 45 frames. So this is a shorthand for 3 properties. This is flex grow, this is flex shrink, and this is the flex spaces. So basically this is telling you this is the original size, and when there isn't enough space to put all the elements on a single row, and hence you have to shrink. So this image should shrink with respect to the other elements being shrunk. So if the other elements on the same row are being shrunk 45%, then this image should also shrink 45%. And likewise, the same is applied to the flex grow as well. If there is more space on a single row and other elements are being grown bigger, then with respect to those elements, this image should also grow as fast or as big as them. So this is what is the property. Okay. Maybe the image size is still big. Let's define some properties for the image tag itself. So copy paste and image. Let's give it width 100%. Okay, good. So image size was greater than its container. Now we have ensured that the image gets 100% of its container and fit in that space. Okay, now let's work on this one, the content section. So about container and the content section. Again, let's define flex 145 rem. Much better. Let's give it heading all around 2 rem. Good. I forgot to put this h3. So let's go to our content section and let's put in h3. What makes us different? Okay. Copy paste it. h3. Font size is 3 rem. Color is white. Maybe we need some padding as well. So padding top and bottom 1.2 rem, left and right 0. Okay. Now let's work on the paragraph. Copy paste this section. Replace it with P. Font size 1.6 rem. Color is CCC. Padding 1 rem. Okay, good. I think we need some line height as well. Line height should be bigger than the font size, so let's make it 2 rem. I think it would be, yeah, that's, maybe make it 2.2 rem. That's better. Okay, good. Is there anything left for this section? I don't think so. Okay, so we have finished our about section as well. Now it's high time that we should define this logic as well. So when we click on this home, we smoothly get scrolled up to this home section, and if we click on the cake, we arrive at this cake section. So the first step is that we have to go to the very top, and over here where we are defining our navigation bar, all of these hrefs are empty. Now we have to provide the ID of each of these sections. So the ID for this home section is home, but since it's an ID, we have to take hash with it. So this is the ID. Likewise, for the second one, the ID is cakes. So let's put hash cakes. And the third one has the ID cheesecakes. Hash new arrivals and hash above. So now what this will do is that when we click on this cheesecake, the browser will scroll up and down based on where this cheesecake section is, such that it aligns with the top left corner of this browser edge. So let's have a look. Click on cakes and we got redirected to the cakes. But if you notice, our heading is missing. So basically, it brought this section, this whole section, and it tried to bring this edge of this cake section over here to the top left corner of this browser edge. And let's do the same to the cheesecakes again. It's trying to bring the starting position of this section and put it on the starting position of the browser edge. We don't want this behavior. We want this title to be visible. So basically, we have to make sure that this scrolling behavior puts some space between each section and the starting portion of this browser edge. So to do that, we have to go to our this asterisk, because this is a generic block. Over here, first of all, we have to give this scrolling a smooth scrolling effect. So scroll behavior is smooth, or let me comment this out for the time being. And let's define this scroll heading top. And basically we have to give it same space that our navigation bar is occupying, and since our navigation bar is occupying 16% of the viewport height, so now we are saying that bring the section that we are interested in, or the section that we have clicked, to the very top, but put some space between the browser window and this section. So let's have a look if the property that we have defined has taken effect. Cake. Now we can clearly see our title as well, cheesecake, and here we are, home, and this is working as well. However, we can't see this smooth scrolling effect that we are seeing here. To bring this smooth scrolling effect, we have to define this properly. Scroll behavior is smooth. This is our project. And let's go to about section, and we can see the smooth scrolling effect. Okay, good. Okay, so in this video we are going to cover the review section, this one, then contact section, this one, and finally the footer section. So let's get started with the review section. So in review section, again we have a card. This quotation is actually an image. Then we have this text, the review by the customer, reviewer's image, name, and the stars. And the transition that is applied over here is when you hover over it, the text color changes and the image size increases. So let's get started. Let's get down. Okay, let's create a section with the class name review as well as ID review. Now over here we have h1 with the class name title. Okay, now the text of this h1 is customers spam reviews. Then we need a wrapper class, and the contents of this wrapper are going to be review card. So let's give them class name review card. And the contents of this review card are, first of all, we need to bring in the image that represents the quotation sign. So image, this is the image, quotes, which is inside the images folder. Then we have the review of the customer. So let's bring in a paragraph, lorem, let's make it 20. Next we have to bring in the image of the customer itself. So images, then let's bring in main one. Then the customer's name is H3, John Doe. Now we have to bring in the stars. So let's go up. In fact, let's look for the stars and let's copy this portion. Let's go down and paste it over here. Okay, that's it. Let's have a look in the browser. How does it look without the HTML styles? Okay, so there is this quotation image, then the text, the review, the image of the person, the customer, name, and the stars. Okay, we are good to go. Now let's copy paste these cards 3 times, then we will apply the styling. So this is where review card begins and over here it ends. So let's start from the bottom, copy, review 2, paste, review 3, paste. Okay, good. Now let's work on styling these cards. So style, let's go down, review section, styles. Okay, so the section name is review, then there we have a wrapper class, and now the name of the card is review card. Let's give it border, text align center, and padding is going to be 3 rem all around and 2 rem left and right. Let's copy, paste, and let's first of all target the images that we have within each card. So let's give them height and see how it affects our images. Let's give them 4 rem and let's have a look. Okay, what do you think? Maybe the customer's image should be bigger than this one. So let's give this second image a class name, and using that class name we are going to define separate styles for this user. So let's go to our HTML, and this is the image. Let's give it a class name. Since these are customers, so the class name is custom. Okay, now let's go back to styles. Copy, paste, and over here let's use the customer class, and height make it 7 rem, and in order to make it a proper square, let's give it width as well. So width is 7 rem as well. Then object fit, let's give it cover, so that means whole image is being displayed in that area. Okay, now to make it into a circle shape, let's give it border radius 50%. Okay, I was looking at this image, whereas this image has been turned into a circle. That's because only one card has a class name customer. So let's assign this class name to both of these cards. And that reminds me, we have to change the images as well. So this is the last image. Let's go up over here. Let's give it a class name. Customer, and while we are at it, let's change the image as well. Let's change the image and make it Jane2. Let's go up and do we have woman 2, and let's make it Sarah Doe and give it a class name. Okay, good. Let's define the hover effect for this image. So let's copy this, paste. Now when we hover over the card, we want this image of the customer to transform and scale a little bit more. So scale 1.1. Okay. Now let's work on this paragraph. Okay, so copy this part up till card review, paste, paragraph. Let's give it font size 1.6 rem. Line height, let's make it 2 rem. Color is heavy used gray. No. Okay, color is gray. And padding all around. Top bottom 2 rem, left and right 0. Okay, that's good. Do you think we should increase the line height? Let's make it 2.2 rem. That's better. Okay, now we have to define the hover effect for this text as well. So let's copy this, paste, but when we hover over the card itself, then the color of the text should change to black. Okay, good. Now let's move on to the title, the username. So let's go down, let's copy this part up till card review, paste. Now we have this H3. Heading all around, not all around, the top and bottom 1 rem and left and right 0 rem. Font size is 2 rem. Color is white. Then let's define text shadow, for which we have created a variable box shadow. Let's have a look. Oh, not box shadow. We are interested in, what was the name that we gave? Was it Have we not defined the text shadow variable? So text shadow. Okay, so we haven't defined this. So what we are going to do instead is we are going to copy it. We should have created a variable. Paste. Let's have a look. Okay, good. Now let's move on to these stars. So let's copy up to this point, paste, and stars. Target the I elements within those stars. So font size 1.5 frame. Color is main color. Maybe we need some padding as well. Padding all around. Let's make it 0.8 frame and 0 left and right. So top and bottom 0.8 frame. Okay, that's better. Okay, good. So we are done with the customers reviews as well. Now let's move on to the contact section. So let's have a look in the demo project. So this is how contact section looks, and this is what we have to recreate. So basically this section contains two parts besides this title. The first part is this Google map, and the second one is this form. So now let's work on it. Let's go to our HTML file. Contact section begins. Section dot contact hash contact. Then we need a h1 with the class name title. So first of all, let's create a spawn within that title or h1 with the text contact, and outside this spawn let's put us, contact us. Now let's create a div with the class name contents, and over here the first child is going to be this image, the Google map. So let's go to Google map first and let's search Victoria Station. Okay, so now this is the Victoria Station, and since we need to embed this image within our website, so let's click on this share button and then click on this embed a map. And over here this is saying copy HTML. So basically what this does is that it's going to create a whole iframe copied, and when we insert this iframe into our web page, then we'll be able to see that image. So now let's paste it over here. So this is an iframe. We bring in iframe when we want to embed external content in our website or on our web page. So this is an iframe and this is the HTTP. Let's go where it ends. Okay, so this up to this point this is the URL. Now this has height and width defined, so we are basically going to remove this height and width because we will define our own height and width in the CSS files. Okay, let's remove this border as well, and let's remove this, what was that property? It was something, okay, allow something, I don't know. Loading lazy, we are gonna keep it because this means only start loading this map when this particular section of the web page gets in the viewport, means when it gets visible. The referral policy, so basically when we click on anywhere on our map, then the request is sent to the Google Maps, and that HTTP request will contain what kind of information regarding the referral that is us to be sent. So let's not get further into it, and let's keep whatever is the default referral policy. Okay, this is it. Now let's have a look at the browser. Okay, so this is our project, and this is how the image has been brought in because we have removed the width and height. Okay, now let's move on to the other part, which was the form that the customer needs to fill in. So let's create a form and let's keep this action empty, and let's have a look in the demo project what our form contains. Okay, again it has a title, then an input field for name, second one for email, and third for the phone number, and then this button, submit button. So let's just create this. Okay, now within this form, first of all, let's create a h3 with the text get in touch. Now let's create a div with the class name input box. Now if you notice, all of these input box contain this font awesome icons as well. So this is a user icon, this is the, I think, email or mail icon. So this is email icon and this is the phone number icon. So we have to bring in these. Okay, so let's create a span with the class name. It's a font awesome icon. So fa user. The contents of span itself are empty. Now input element of type text. Let's give it name even though we don't need it. And let's change this ID to placeholder and make it name. Okay, now let's copy this input box 2 more times. Okay, the second one has FAS-FA envelope. Sorry, envelope. The correct pronunciation is envelope. Okay, and name and placeholder is going to be email. And the third one has the icon phone. Okay, then we have an anchor tag with the class name btn for the submit button. So anchor tag with the class name btn, text is contact now. Let's have a look. Okay, so this is our project we are working on. Okay, so we have this map and this contact form. Now let's start defining styles for these. So style, now let's go down. Okay, we were already down. Okay, contact as section begins. Okay, so the section name is contact and there we have a class named contents. Okay, so for this, let's define display flex. Background color is black. Flex wrap for the smaller screens. Okay, then the gap is going to be 1 rem. Okay, so this is how it looks at the moment. Then let's target the iframe. So copy, paste, iframe. Let's give this content section some height. So height is going to be 50 rem. Okay. Now for the iframe, since this is the first child of this flex box, so let's give it height 100%. That is of its parent, which is 50 rem. Okay. Now flex. Let's define these three properties: shrink, growth, and basis. So 45 frame. So this is the starting or initial area occupied by this iframe. Object fit is cover. Okay, not bad. Now let's copy this block, paste, and change this iframe to the form that we have. So again, height is going to be 100%. That means 100% of the parent flex is 1145 frame. Since this is not an image, so delete this object fit. Text align is center, and let's give it padding as well. So padding 5 rem all around and 2 rem left and right. Okay, that's better. Now let's work on the contents of this form. Okay, so copy, paste, and there we have first of all a h3. Text transform uppercase. Color is white. Font size is 3.5 frame. Let's give it some padding as well, padding or margin. So let's give it padding. Let's make it padding top and bottom 1 rem, left and right 0 rem. Okay, good. Now let's move on to defining the styles for the input box. So copy, paste, and there we have a div with the class name input hyphen box. Display is flex. Align items center. Margin bottom is 2 then, because this H3 has a padding, so let's increase this padding 1.5 so that there is some space between this H3 and these input boxes. And each of these input box has a margin bottom, so each input box has some space between them and the next element. Now let's give it a border. Okay, now copy paste it, and there within each input box we have a span, so let's target that span. Color is white, font size is 2 rem, and padding to the left is going to be 2 rem as well. Now let's copy paste this block, and now let's target the input element within each of these input boxes. Background color is, let's give it black color. Okay. Text transform is none, because we don't want anything that the user types to be turned into capitalized letters, because that is the default transformation that is being applied to all the elements throughout our web page, and we don't want that to happen over here. So color is white as well, width 100%, heading is going to be all around 2 rem. Okay, maybe we should increase this font size. So font size is 1.8 rem. Okay, we don't have defined any hover styles for this part, so we are done with the contact us section as well. Now let's bring in the IDs for these links. So go to the navigation bar over here. Now for the review, the ID is review, and for the contact us, the ID is contact. Review, contact. Good. Now we have to work on this footer section, this one over here. So let's keep coding. So as you can see, this footer section seems to be divided into 3 parts. The first one contains these links, the social media links, and these are again the same menu icons that we have at the top, and then over here at the bottom are the credits. So let's go and define that. Okay, so this is our index.html. Let's go down in fact. Okay. Footer begins. Now this footer is not a section, it's a HTML element in its own right. So footer with the class name footer. Then let's create a div with the class name social media. There we have anchor tags for each of the social media links. So let's create 6 anchor tags. Okay, now first one has a class FAS FA-Facebook F. Let's bring them to separate lines. Okay, now copy this and paste it everywhere in all of the anchor tags. So paste. Now let's change them. The first one is Facebook, the second one is Twitter. Okay, now these icons actually have the first class as FAB, not FAS, so let's change them. FAB, the first one is Facebook, the second is FA-Twitter. Then Instagram. Then we have LinkedIn. Then we have Pinterest. And this is extra. Okay. There they are. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. LinkedIn, Pinterest. Where is Pinterest? PE. Okay, there it is. Now let's move on to these anchor tags. So outside this social media div, let's create another div with a class name links, and over here let's simply go up and copy these links. Copy, paste. Okay, now the third div is credits. So created by span coding with NJ, then all rights reserved. Okay, now we are done with the structure. Now let's move on to styling them. Okay, so go to our CSS file, footer, background color is black, text align center. Okay, now footer and social media. Let's give it heading top and bottom 1 rem, left and right 0. Then copy paste this, and now let's target the anchor text within the social media. Height and width 5 rem, because we are going to turn them into a circle. So first of all, turn them into a square, then apply border radius 50%, line height the same 5 rem, font size 2 rem, color is white, border is border, margin, even though we are defining all around, but since anchor is a inline element, so it's only going to be applied to the left and right. So 0.3 rem, or shall we increase it to 5 rem? Okay, let's have a look. Okay, good. Now we have to define the hover property. So copy, paste, hover, change the background color to main color. Okay, good. Now let's move on to the anchor tags. So footer, then links, set it display to flex, justify content center, flex ref is ref for the smaller screens, and heading all around, top and bottom 2 rem, left and right 0, gap is 1 rem. Okay, now let's target the anchor tags within this links div. So copy paste, anchor, let's delete, heading 0.7 rem, top and bottom 2 rem, left and right, color is white, border is border, font size is 2 rem. Okay, now let's define the hover property for this anchor tag. So copy, paste, hover, background color is main color. Okay, good. Now let's move on to the credit section. So footer, credits, font size is 2 rem, color is white, font weight is lighter, heading all around 1.5 rem. Copy, paste, now target this font which contains my name, color is going to be main color. Okay. Okay, now we have defined all these contents of our HTML and the basic styling. And in the next and the final video, we will be working on making this page responsive. But if you have noticed, we have already been taking care of making them as responsive as possible without using media queries, such as when we use grid template columns and we used autofit and min-max values to define the grid columns. And for the flex, we have been using flex wrap and flex bases. So since we have defined customers reviews and context section now, so let's see how responsive it already is. So this seems to be working fine. As we shrunk the size, the last card moved to the next row. But now there seems to be a problem over here. If you notice, the image has occupied all the height, and now the footer section and the contact form has been squashed in together. So we have done something wrong over here. So let's go and fix this aspect. So the mistake that we have made is that this is our context section and this is the content section or the content div which is wrapped around its children, and the children are this iframe and this form. And since we have given it a height 50 rems, and for both of its children we are saying occupy 100% of the parent height, so since the iframe is the first child, it occupied all the height of the parent, and now there is nothing left for the second child. So that's why it has moved on to the footer section. Now we didn't have this problem when we are in the bigger screen, because now there is enough width horizontally, so both of them can have same height as the parent, because both of these children are side by side. But when we move on to a smaller screen where there isn't enough space and the second child has moved on to the next row, so there is enough space width-wise, but as far as the height is concerned, the whole height has been occupied by the first child. So we have to fix this problem. So in order to fix this problem, what we are going to do is that we are going to comment this out, the height that we have defined for the content section, which is the parent of both of these children. And now for the children, let's define the height to be 50 rem individually. So the height is 50 rem. Okay, now let's have a look. Now if you notice, problem has been solved. So both children are occupying 50 rem of height. And for these navigation links, since we have defined its parent to be display property flex and flex wrap to wrap, that's why these two elements have been moved to the next row. So let's shrink this size even further and see what happens. Now as you can see, more anchor text have been moved to the next row. So even though we haven't used any more media queries so far, but a lot of the contents are already responsive. Now in the next section, we will be working on making the remaining aspects of this web page or website responsive. So in the meantime, happy coding, keep learning, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, click on the bell notification, and if possible, comment and share as well, so that I know I'm being appreciated. Thank you so much. Okay, now since we have completed all the sections of our website, so we have done everything. The only aspect that needs to be taken care of is making it responsive. So today we are going to make sure that our website is responsive as well. It adapts itself according to changing screen sizes. But before we use any kind of media queries to make it responsive, let's have a look at the measures that we have already taken to make this website responsive without using any media queries. So the first thing that I would like to point out is, let's go to the cake section. Now let's decrease the screen size or viewport size, and as you can see, the content seems to be already adjusting themselves according to the changing size of the screen. Now this is possible because we have used these kind of statements. For the grid template columns, we have used this repeat function, and the value for this repeat function was autofit and min-max function. Now since we have already explained this function in our previous video, so I'm not going to get into the details of that, but this is just a refresher that because of this thing, we are already able to make our website responsive without making or using any kind of media queries. Now the other things that we have already taken into account were using these rem units. So this rem means root element, and for this root element, we have set the font size to be 62.5%. So generally the font size is 16 pixels, and by setting it to 62.5% of 16 pixels, we have set it to be 10 pixels. And then wherever we use RAM, let's say we have used a unit 1.5 RAM, so that means we have said according to the root element, that is this HTML, we want to set it 1.5% of that size. Since root element is 10 pixels, 1.5 means 15 pixels. But if we set this to even smaller unit, let's say 55%, then everything will readjust their RAM values according to this size. So this is another measure that we have already put into place. Now all we have to do is take advantage of that measure. So let me put it back to 62.5%. Okay. Now let's go back to our website, webpage, and let's see what kind of measures that we need to put into place. So let's start with the top and let's start decreasing the size. Okay, now when the dimensions are 992 with respect to the width, you can see that the area has shrunk enough such that these menu items cannot fit into this single row. So for these kind of devices, which are usually laptops and bigger tablets, we want to adjust the dimensions of this header section. Let's go to our CSS file, and at the very end, let's define a media query. So the media query starts with add media. Then this add media is followed by some kind of media type. Now this media type can be a screen or it can be a printer. For that we write print. Another value for this media type could be speech when we are using text-to-speech devices. And if we want to consider all type of media, so we can use all keyword as well. If we like, we can completely omit this media type altogether. So when we completely omit this media type, that means it applies to all media types. So by default, it's considered this value. So let's omit it because that will make this media query to be applied to all type of medias. Okay. In fact, let's put it back for a little while because I have to explain something else as well. Okay, now after this media type, we can define media feature. That is, if we want to make this media query to be applied conditionally. When certain conditions are satisfied, we want this media query to be applied, and for the rest of the cases, this media query should not be applied. So if that is the case, then we use an AND keyword, and then over here we can define any type of media feature. So basically this media feature is going to be a condition. It's usually placed in a parenthesis, and then we can define the actual block where we will define all these styles that we want to be applied. Once this feature has been satisfied or this condition has been satisfied, and these are the media types or devices on which this query should be applied. Okay. Now in our case, the media feature or the condition that we are going to use is going to be max width. So based on the certain width, we want to apply this media query. Let's say the first media query that we want to be applied is when the maximum width is 992. That is, if the maximum width gets lower than this 992 pixels, then we want the rules that we define over here to be applied. So let's make it 992 pixels. Now the easiest way to remember is that basically we want to apply some media queries when our devices are or when the width of the device is less than 992 pixels. So even though we are targeting devices that have a width less than 992, but the feature that we have targeted is max width. So once the max width gets lower than 992 pixels, we want following rules to be applied. Now because we want to apply these rules to all media types, in that case we don't have to write this part, all and. Okay. So now this media query is going to be applied to tablets and small laptops. Okay, now the first thing that we want to define over here is that for the root element, that is the HTML, we want to decrease the font size from 62.5% to 55%. Now you can already see the difference. That is, all the menu items have finally come up in the same row. That is, all the menu items are again in a single row. So this is because we have changed the font size of the root element, and for the rest of the element, defining font sizes in RAMs has this effect, because now 1.5 RAM means not 15 pixels, rather it must be 12 pixels or 11 pixels, because RAM units means with respect to the root element, and we have changed the size of root element. So this in turn has affected all the units that were defined with the RAM values. Okay, now do you think we need to make any further changes as far as this header is concerned? I think maybe we should decrease the size of this logo as well. So let's go up, and first of all let's look at the current styles of our logo. So this header logo has an image with height 10 RAM. Let's shrink it from 10 RAM to 8 RAM. So let's copy this block and bring it over here, paste it. Now We are going to keep this border radius same, so remove it. For the height, let's decrease it to 8 rem. And let's have a look. Maybe that's too small. About 9 rem. Yeah, I think that's better. Okay, this seems to be fine. Now let's move on to the cake section. I think we are happy with this one as well. Cheesecakes, we are fine. No, we are not fine. Okay, cakes are fine. Cheesecakes are not fine. Now as you can see, the image size seems to be coming out of these card sides. So we have to go back to the part where we have defined the styles for this cheesecake section and fix it there. And once we fix it there, we don't have to do anything with respect to the media query. So let's go to the cheesecake. Okay, we are interested in the image. Okay, so we have given it height is 20 rem. Okay, so having a fixed height that is 20 rem seems to be causing a problem. Now since we have only defined the height, so that means the width will automatically get adjusted with respect to this height. And setting height to be 20 rem when the width of a card decreases seems to bring these images out of this card. So we have two options over here. We can either decrease the height in the media query over here, or what we can do is that, let's go back to our cheesecakes, or what we can do is that we can set the width to be 100%, that is 100% of its parent. So whatever width it inherits from the parent, that width will be assigned to the image, and now the height will automatically get adjusted according to this width. Now you can see the problem has been solved. Now we had two options. We could either use media query or we can make adjustments in the default styles. So why go for media query when we have option to fix this problem through the default styles? Okay, so now let's keep shrinking it. Okay, we are not encountering this problem, so we don't need to define any media queries for this one. Okay, now let's go to new arrival. This seems to be doing fine. About, this is also fine. Seems to be fine. Contact is also fine. Okay. Next we have to target small devices, that is small tablets. So for the small devices, maximum width is 768. Okay, now as you can see, we are again encountering the same problem, that is the menu item doesn't seem to be fitting in a single row. So at this point we want to remove these menu items from the header, and we want to bring in the menu icon that we have initially made invisible by setting its display property to none. But now we want to make that menu icon visible, and when we click on this, we see a drop down list of these menu items. So let's just do that. First of all, let's define a media query for smaller devices. That is small tablets. 8 media and maximum width is 768 pixels. So let's have a look at the class name that we gave to that menu icon, that is by default invisible. So this is the name that we have given to menu icon. Dot menu icon. Let's set its display property to inline block. Let's have a look. Why isn't it visible now? Can you think of any reason? Let's look for the previously defined rule for menu icon. Okay, so over here we are setting display none. But now can you guess the problem? Well, if you notice, this menu icon is more specific. That is, this rule is more specific because we are saying a menu icon, a class with the name menu icon, which is inside a parent with the class name icons, which in turn is inside a parent with the class name header, make this one invisible. So this rule is more specific. It is telling more information about this menu icon, that which menu icon class we are setting display property to none. Whereas over here in the media query, we were just saying menu icon, so any menu icon. So this is giving us less information. This makes this rule less specific compared to the one that we have defined over here. Where is it? So this one is more specific. This is telling more information, hence it's taking more priority. As a result, this one is not taking any effect. So to fix it, let's make this rule as specific as the previous one. So inside the header section, we have a class with the name icons, and there we have a class with the name menu icon. Now set this display property to inline block. And now you can see this menu icon is visible. Okay, so now once this gets visible, we want to make this menu invisible. And when we click on this icon, a drop-down list should appear which contains all of these menu items. So let's go to index.html and let's look for the class name where all of these anchor tags are defined. Okay, so all of these anchor tags are defined inside nav element with the class name navbar. So we have to target this navbar. Now since this navbar is a child of header and we have already set its position to be fixed, so once we define the position absolute for this navbar, this header will be its immediate parent. Okay, so over here we have a header class. There we have a navbar class. We want to set its position to be absolute, and we want to set top 100%. So that means right where that green navigation bar ends. So top is 100% with respect to the parent. Okay, now let's put right to be 0. Width is, let's make it 30 rem. Background color is white. For the height, let's give it 80% of viewport height. Okay, so this is how it looks. And as you can see, navigation bar has disappeared from here. However, now the text is invisible because the color of the text is white as well. So let's fix it. We have header, then navbar, and there we have anchor tags. Let's change the color to main color. Let's have a look. Oh, before we have a look, let's fix the spelling. Okay, header, navbar. Okay, good. Now we can at least see the text. However, now we have to make each of these anchor tags block elements so that they all get on separate rows. So display is block. Okay, that's better. Now give them margin, heading, and font size. So for the font size, let's make it 2 rem. Heading is all around 0.5 or 0.8 rem. Left and right, let's make it 0.5 rem. Okay. Margin is 1.5 rem all around. Maybe too much. Heading all around 0.5 rem. That's better. Okay, now but first initially we want to make it invisible. So the right, let's make it minus 100%. Okay, now when we click on this menu icon, we want this drop down box to appear. So let's create a class active for this navbar. So copy, paste dot active and set the right to 0 over here. Now we have to attach and remove this active class from this navbar through JavaScript. So first of all, let's copy paste this and change it from search form to menu icon. The class name is menu icon as well. Let's copy paste it and change this name to menu icon. Now the logic that we have to define over here is that when we click on this menu icon, we want this drop down list to appear and disappear. So the name for this drop down list was this navbar. So let's create a reference for this navbar. Let's make this B as well, small. Let's copy paste it, and for the top one, navbar.classlist.add active, search form.classlist.remove active. Okay, now we need to copy this and paste it in the rest of the event listeners. Paste, but over here we want to remove it because when other icons are clicked, so the drop downs or menus associated with them, they should appear and the rest should disappear. Okay, so we have attached this over here. Copy, we have attached it with the search icon as well. Okay, so now let's click on it and we can see this drop down list appearing. Let's click over here and this disappeared and our card appeared. Good. Okay, so they are all working. Now next we want to make the search bar get bigger and occupy almost 100% of the width of this viewport. So to do that, let's target the header class once more, and there we have a child with the class name search form. Let's give it width 92%. Okay, now let's have a look. Let's click on search icon. Okay, this is 92%. But now if you notice, this search box doesn't seem to be properly aligned. From the left, there isn't much space, and at the right side, there is plenty of space. So let's copy paste this part, and when this one has active class attached, then we want to set the right to 1.5 frame. Let's have a look. Let's make it 2 rem. Yeah, that's better. Not better actually. So 92% and 2% makes 94%. So at this side we have 6 rem. Let's change it to percent per. So it's 92% in width, and so that means the 8% of the space is left. Now we have to equally divide this space between left and right side. So let's make it from the right side 4%. Okay, that's better. Yeah, now it's proportionally spaced. Okay, good. Okay, that part is sorted. Now what do we do next? So this is home. Okay, this seems fine. Okay, now if you notice, this text and the image seems to be squashed together, so let's fix this. The first thing that we have to do is that we have to decrease the padding that we have by default for each of the section. So okay, for the section, let's make it padding all around 2 rem. That's better. Now we have to push this image towards the right side. Now since this image is actually the background image of the home section, so home, and we have to set the background position to left. That means we start placing the image from the left side. This will push the dish towards the right side. Okay, good, that's better. The rest seems to be fine. Now cake section, this is fine, fine. Okay, so everything seems to be fine. Now maybe we should decrease the font size of this text and little bit this one over here as well. So since they are inside this home section, there we have a hero section, sorry, hero div, and there we have this h3, so set its font size to 4.5 frame. That's better. Now copy paste it and change this h3 to p and change the font size to 1.5 frame. That's better. Okay, I think we are good now. Now let's target the smallest screens, that is the handheld devices. So let's go down, smartphones, create media, max width is, so anything 550 pixels or smaller. For that we just want to change the font size, the default rem size for the root element to 50%, and the rest will be taken care of. Okay, so 550. Okay, good, that's better. Okay, I think we are good as far as the responsiveness is concerned. Now the only thing that we have to do is that, for example, I have clicked this search icon, and now if I scroll down, this search icon is still there. So we want the search icon or any drop down icon that appears because if we have clicked it, then we want it to disappear as soon as we scroll up or down, even a little bit. So for that we have to go to our script file and we have to define an event listener on window.onScroll. Let's define an arrow function, and all we have to do is that copy any of these, paste it over here, and for all of these we have to remove them. So if navigation drop down menu is visible, make it invisible. If search box is visible, make it invisible. And if the cards container is visible, make it invisible as well, as soon as we scroll up or down. So now let's give it a try. Now let's scroll up and it disappeared. Click on this one, scroll, and it disappeared. Click over here, scroll, and it disappeared. Okay, so now everything seems to be working. We have successfully finished our project. And this brings us to the end of our tutorial. I hope you liked it. If you did, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel, click on the bell icon, and don't forget to appreciate me through your comments and by sharing with your friends. Thank you so much.